recording. Um, Welcome. Thank you for tuning into Chapter 5 of On the Lounge with. Today I'm interviewing Steve Moffitt, um, but I'm doing this intro because my side of the video was absolutely shocking, and I've spent a long time trying to get it cleaned up for you to have a look at. Can't do it, don't have the software for it, not able to make it work. So I'm putting this up there for you to have a look at. Disregard my side, blur it out if you can, but listen to Steve's story. It's a fantastic story. It's a really knowledgeable and fun guy to have a conversation with. I'll get Steve on again and do a better video because I've now worked out how to do it. So enjoy this chapter, enjoy Steve's story, and I'll see you with when I have a much better, cleaner video from my end. Enjoy your journey, guys. Hello, welcome to chapter 5, I believe we're in now of On the Lounge with. And today I've got a special guest, and you can see him over here. Steve Moffitt is from North Carolina in the US, and I'm grateful for your time, Steve, to be here today. I know it's not late your time, but it sort of works out well. So, Steve, I just want to let you know what the process is, and I know I've explained it to you before, but again, for those who may not have seen an On the Lounge with before, I want to talk with the normal people, and there's a lot of channels out there at the moment that talk to celebrities, and people have all the stats in the world, and they bombard us with things and make our heads spin. I think everybody has a story to tell, and I think today I'm going to enjoy listening to your story. So what I'd like everyone to do when they're on the lounge is to obviously just relax, and they've got 3 topics I'd like you to talk about. The first one is something from your youth that you still have and hold true to your values today. Something from the recent past, say 5 years back up to now, that you've seen has impacted you personally. You don't have to go too personal because you're on the internet. And the last thing is something that really annoys you in the world today. And I believe this is an open topic, and we've just got to be a little respectful of. Well, maybe we don't, because sometimes I don't give a crap. The things that people say that we can't say, maybe. Anyhow, we'll get into that. So these timelines, you can work any amount of time on them that you want. You can spend 2 minutes on the past and 20 minutes on the recent past, and 1 second on what annoys you, or whatever order you want, but generally in that order. Are you okay to have a start with this?
Sure.
All right. So, and you're okay for me to ask you questions, because I might just interject
Absolutely.
and ask you a question. Yeah, beautiful.
Absolutely.
All right. So the floor or the lounge is yours. So if you're prepared to, just your year of birth, so that people got an understanding of where you are in your generational thing, and then the floor's yours.
Okay. My year of birth, I was born in 1953. As I said a little earlier, I'm almost 70. Probably the biggest influence from my past, when I think about growing up, I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Marine Corps, and he came up through the ranks the hard way. Joined at 17, made it up to captain. He was a flyer.
So just on that, sorry to interrupt you. I know you're just getting a roll, but my dad was in the military as well, so I had a military upbringing too. But in America, see, our guys have got commissioned officers and non-commissioned officers.
Yes.
And if Dad went in as a commissioned officer because he was a journalist, but your father went in the Marine Corps as a enlisted, like a private.
Yes.
And he worked his way through. Do you have non-commissioned and commissioned officer levels, or
Yes.
can you just promote from private all the way through to the military?
No, the non-commissioned. Somebody that's watching from the U.S. could correct me if I'm wrong, but I was never strong on the officer ranks. But I believe the non-commissioned is the warrant officer levels.
Yeah, it stops there. That's right.
And I heard you mention warrant officer the other day when you were on one of your streams. And then he worked up through, I don't know what's above warrant officer to captain.
Lieutenant, I think.
Yeah, he worked through that. He was I always called him a navigator. He was a radio intercept operator.
Oh, wow.
RIO. When he joined, that's what he wanted to fly, and he got in flying that way. He wasn't a pilot; he was always the back seat. Uh, he flew in Korea during the Korean War.
Wow.
He and his whole squadron got uh, the what's the it's the Distinguished Flying Cross for. I think they flew. He told me one time. He didn't talk a lot about it until he got in his 90s. Well, he died at 90, but until he got in his late 80s, he they flew successive 39 night missions in like 36 days, something or 35 days,
Wow.
and not all of them made it back, but he did.
You don't hear
So
about that anymore, do you, Steve?
no,
So it's
that's the and like I say, he came up through the ranks a tough way. Nowadays, you don't you go to college and you come in and you go in as an officer. Not People just don't go up through the ranks anymore like
no,
that. It's just
no.
not possible. I don't think, at least not in the Marine Corps. They want people that start out with a college degree to be in the officer ranks. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, as a result, um, moved around a lot. Um, I was always seemed like growing up, I was always the new kid on the block, so to speak. So, and I hated that, constantly having to be the new kid in the neighborhood and having to figure out who's who and make friends. And
Steve, mate, Steve, do you have any siblings?
I have three brothers. One's 3 years older than me, and
Yeah.
then I have two that are 8 and 10 years younger.
Oh, so you were really caught in the middle of that. Like my brother was 15 months older than me. So when we moved, like what you were moving, we actually always had each other. So even
Well,
though
my
you would have
older
had,
brother, we were close enough, you know.
okay,
Uh,
good.
by the time the two younger ones came along, I was getting late in high school and in college
Yeah.
by the time they were up in the age. So so there's a big difference between the last two and the first two. But
Yeah.
um, growing up, it was a struggle for me because uh, I was an introvert, still
Yep.
am. Um, People don't believe me when I say that, but I'm the kind of I normally don't do this kind of thing. The first time I ever did anything like this was with G-Man on Waffles and Whiskey when he
Yep.
started setting up, connections. I think I was one of the first to do a call in with him. Um,
Yep.
but but later in life, um, it I realized it made me more open minded and more adaptable. So I've carried that through my life. That early lesson of having to be adaptable
Yeah,
to
that's cool,
whatever
isn't it?
situation you find yourself in. It's tough growing up that way, but
Yeah, I've had people say the same thing to me about that, and I would say it's funny. I see a lot of parallel between you and I, and I've only just met you. Um, Military upbringing, reasonably similar generational time. Both got wicked beards and awesome hair, which is really
yours is
exciting.
nicer than mine. Mine's scraggly.
Well, I'm grooming it. But the whole moving and I believe I'm an introvert as well. But I've embraced the need to be extroverted when I need to be extroverted, and
Yeah,
I think given the opportunity, I can quite happily sit and enjoy my own company. Like before I met my wife, I've been with now for probably 12, 13 years. I was alone for 12 or 13 years. Like, and I was quite happy
yeah.
with my own space and time. And it was easier to do that. Not that I had a lack of companionship. I still taught my martial arts and things, but so I think I understand what you mean. Um, those values of being introverted and then adapting when you need to adapt. I think
Yeah.
it's a great skill to have, and that's what you think has maintained yourself right through your life, hasn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I started to try. I tried to get an ROTC scholarship to go to
Mm.
college, but my eyesight. I couldn't get into Coast Guard Academy. Couldn't get in Annapolis. I had the grades, but couldn't get a scholarship. and that was the only reason I was going for what we call them ROTCs. Uh,
Yeah.
um, I really did not want to join the military, especially at the timing because we were still in Vietnam.
Yeah.
The second year, I think we were still there the second year of my college year. Um, but because I don't take orders well, I question too much, and that used to drive my dad crazy. Growing up, it
Yeah.
was children should be seen, not heard. And
Yeah.
if I tell you to do something, do it. And I'm that way with my granddaughters, but doesn't seem to work as well with this
No, no,
generation.
right. But they come out absolutely defiant, don't they? That how old's your
Yeah.
granddaughter?
I have three. I have one that'll be 16 soon. Um,
Wow.
I have one that'll be 11 soon and one that'll be 8 soon.
Well, my two grandkids are flying home from America as we speak. Really, they've
Oh,
been
where
in
were they in
upstate New
America?
York. Oh,
Oh,
they've just been visiting their father's family. Is
uh-huh.
from upstate New York, and they're 4 and 3, and obviously the best grandkids in the world because they are because everyone's grandkids are the best grandkids in the world, aren't they? And I see
Well,
them protect.
mine are great, but I thought I could handle young children. I've learned I would never be a teacher, a grade school
You
teacher.
surprise yourself. You
I,
surprise yourself. Just what you have
no,
to
they
do when
would
you got to do it.
fire me the first week because I would be. We have a saying in the South. I'd be snatching a knot in their head.
Explain that.
Um, if in the South, when I grew up, if you were doing something you shouldn't have been doing, you were young, even the teachers, any adult, you were at church, you were out and about walking with your parent, it didn't matter if you weren't with your parents. Even though, of course, I grew up in a small town, so most everybody either knew who I was, knew my mother and
Yeah.
father, you know, the years that I spent in my hometown. Um, and snatch a knot in your head is that they come up and just take their hand and slap the back of your head hard. Hard enough it could raise a knot if they happen to have a ring on. They try not to do it with the ring on because that hurt. That'll crack a skull. But
Oh, that's funny.
that's called snatching a knot in your head.
Oh,
And
I like it.
there's a lot. Far too often I want to do that to my granddaughters because they just don't listen.
Well, don't you
That it,
find you want to do that to everybody?
um
There's a
no
lot of people who want to do that too.
no I think because I'm over. My wife and I go over in the afternoons every day in the summer, and then and during the school year we alternate because we realized neither one of us could take the stress of being there every day. We did that during the COVID shutdowns, and we finally said we've got to tag team this because we're going to go crazy.
Go mad,
There's a
yeah.
lot of stress, and so it was hard on them, and their frustrations just made it harder for
Mm.
us too. So, but
So
so
did you ever play music? I know you said you love music. Did you? Are you a musician?
I sing in the shower and not well.
Oh God, you're brave. I
But
don't even do that.
I mean, it sounds good to me, but that's true. Everybody thinks that.
Oh shit, I
No,
don't.
none of my brothers were. I think my youngest brother was in the band in high school, but I don't think he was all that good. Um, I have a cousin on my mother's side that I think I tell him. I said his nickname's Snooky, and I'll tell him about this, and maybe he'll watch it. He's in Spain right now. Um, he lives half the year in Spain, but anyway, uh, he sucked up all the musical talent in, in the family.
Yeah.
He is he was like a young John Denver.
Oh really?
Really, truly, he was very talented, and he actually wrote some songs about the time he was in high school. He wrote some songs about the time John Denver was making it, and we would be at a family gathering, and he would go, "Well, let me play this tune for y'all." He always playing songs for us, and he would play the song, and 6 months later, 3 months later, I'd hear a John Denver song, and I go, "Snook, that's your song. Did you send it to somebody?" He said, "No." He said, "I know it sounds just like it. words weren't the same, but and that happened 4 or 5 times, and I went, "You should go." He went to Nashville a couple of times, but that's a hard road. He was very talented, but there are a lot
Yeah.
of talented people. So
So can I
anyway,
put something? Can I put something to you?
sure.
You can. I know this is about you, so it's not really about me. But what you just said then just rang a little bell for me. In the early '70s in Australia, we didn't have much TV because we had one TV station and the Australian Broadcasting Commission, which was like a government run. It still is a government run
Yeah,
TV channel. But my brother, I think, invented the BMX bike. Right, we had the traditional bikes with the standard handlebars and the tiny little seat,
yeah,
and then we got the I don't know what you call them, the dragster bikes with the big ape hanger handlebars and the big long
yeah,
banana seat and sissy bar.
yeah. Hmm.
And he went, I might take the traditional handlebars off the traditional bike and put them onto the what do I call it?
BMX.
Dragster.
Yeah,
Yeah, and put the little seat on it. And we had these tiny little traditional bikes, and we would be able to do jumps and burns, all that sort of stuff on. And then in Australia, anyway, maybe a lot different to the US, about 2 or 3 years later, you could actually buy a BMX bike. I go, my brother had that. My brother, we made that through 2 or 3 years ago. This isn't new. We've had that. And it sort of takes it into a mind, like you're saying, your cousin wrote a song, played it for you, and then some months later, John Denver or someone similar played the similar sound. Do you think that people tune in um, into a creative mind like a radio station, and their brains tune into it, like your cousin did with, and John Denver did at the same time, and your cousin wrote this beautiful song and great words, and John Denver heard it in this, I don't know how to say it without sounding like a complete fool, um, in a frequency level. And John Denver heard it and thought, oh, I like that, and he just wrote it down. So
well,
the ideas are floating around in the ether, and people just tune in and grab them.
I, you know, I don't know if I'd say that that was true or possible. It may be possible, but I think when you're in, what's more likely is it was that particular time, that particular kind of sound was being written. You know,
Mm,
it was just. It's kind of like, you hear Beach Boys music, and then you
yeah,
start hearing a lot of other, or Beach Boys heard Dan and Gene and others, before them,
yeah,
and the Beatles and stuff, and that. So you get into a genre of sound, a particular era or a particular time frame, and I, it goes back maybe before we started recording this, that where it's tough to write something new, and so
yes,
I think it may be more of that. Um,
yeah.
but it could be the other. It could be that
Well, it
creative
could be all of it,
minds.
couldn't it?
Yeah, it could be creative minds are tuning in to whatever frequencies are out there.
Yeah,
I've been
is there
watching
just
some.
a certain amount of things that you can do? Like people. So the saying that necessity is the mother of invention. And in my mind, I don't believe that that's necessarily the case. I think laziness is the mother of invention. I think we just want to make things a little bit easier for us, like even the simple of a Velcro tab on a nappy or a diaper. Um, why don't you put pins in? Well, I don't want to stab my child, and it's too much. It's too hard to do it. So let's make it easier. So someone invented Velcro tabs on a nappy or a diaper, and
I
I think so
I
that
can. I didn't do it, but I'm going to tell you, when I was young and my two younger brothers were babies, the Pampers weren't invented, and my older brother and I argued about whose turn it was to change a nasty diaper. And these were the days of, take the thing off, dunk it in the toilet, and throw it in the diaper pail.
yeah,
Not a nice chore for a kid, a tween to have to do. And for a long time, because of that, I said, when I met my future wife, I said, I really don't want to have kids. I'm not
yeah,
interested in having kids. We ended up with two daughters, but um, that's another story. But
yeah.
yeah,
Another day.
it turned me off. And then when we have children, it's like, oh, this is so much easier, because I would stick myself before I'd stick my little baby brother,
Yeah, yeah,
try not to. Um,
yeah.
And I see it sometimes. There's a fad comes back of people wanting to use cloth diapers again, yeah, because it's more natural. I'm going, you folks are nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, they will.
Go with
They'll
the
do it
flow.
until they stick their child and they realise how hard it is to wash and keep them clean and keep them
Well,
hygienic and those sorts of things.
I
I
think
think
most of those I think most of those people have a diaper service. They don't have to deal. They just throw it
that's
all
right.
in.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so anyway,
And they're rich
uh,
enough. They're rich enough to be able to afford to do that, so they can. They're rich enough to be virtual signaling how wonderful they are using cloth nappies that no one else can. So
it
yeah, I
may
get
be
that.
the case of the nanny changes the bad
Yeah,
diaper. You
probably.
know,
Look,
it's like,
smelly baby, take it away from me. Yeah.
all
So
right.
okay, um, so
So
we can
you
go on with
wanted
this. So
to
move into the next part, if you don't mind.
sure.
Um, what about in the last 5 years that you see now that it's molded you a little bit today from the last 5 years or so?
Well, the last 5 years, I retired, and
Congratulations.
thank you. Um, and one of the big things I've noticed is I'm probably because I won't say I have more time on my hands to do the things I would like to do because the grandkids keep us busy, and then there's always somebody's got a doctor's appointment, somebody's got one of the kids has got to go to soccer practice or volleyball, something. And
Yeah.
we try to help out because my daughter and her husband both work, and so we're there for them. We love to do that, but uh, I, I I started finding myself if I was and some people are going to think, well, this guy's not much of a man, but my wife, for most of our married life, and we've been married this year 46 years.
Oh, again,
Um,
congratulations.
well, when I met her, I told her I didn't believe in long engagements, and we were engaged for 7. We were going to get married when we were 19, and I was still in college, and said we need to rethink this. But so I found since I've retired that I'll be at the grocery store. I'll be somewhere ready to check out. I got a lot of items, and somebody's comes up behind me with just one or two. And I love to say, "Please go ahead of me." They go, "You
Mm.
sure?" I go on. I love to say, "I'm retired. I don't have to be anywhere in a hurry." I love saying that. It's
Yeah.
just a different mindset to
Oh, sure
to
is.
to what it was all those years of having to, nose to the grindstone, just stay focused, go to work, uh, you know, do it all over again every week.
Yeah. You put it on
Um,
repeat, don't you? You just do it and repeat, do it and
yeah,
repeat, do it and repeat. Same thing.
yeah, and
What did
it's
you do
just
before you retired, Steve?
I had a varied career. My uh, When I went to college, I went. I have a 2 year degree and a associate's degree in marine technology. Went on to
Wow.
get a BS in marine biology. Unfortunately, graduated at a time when the only real employers were the government, and they were shutting down all their most of their programs. So got
Yeah.
into the business world. Just was in some retail, managed a Goodyear store for a while. Then I got an opportunity to go overseas to Saudi Arabia for about 4 years on a
Wow.
construction project. A friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, you want to come over? You want to come over and make this buckets of money?" And I went, "When do I leave?" Um, Literally, it went like that. My wife was
Yeah.
going, "Leave where?" She was listening. I'm going to Saudi Arabia. You'll come along later. But that was really mind blowing because it was such a different culture. It's the first time I'd been out of the United States other than going to Tijuana when I was a kid living in California. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, we went on a day trip or two. Um, uh, and to Canada when I was in college. But to live in another country, man, um, that there's no place like home line. Uh,
Yeah.
what you grow up with sticks with you so much that it's just a part of you. And to see other parts of the world are great, but yeah, I was after 4 years, I was ready to get back. So
Yeah, I bet.
uh,
Saudi
uh,
Arabia is a huge culture shock too, though, isn't it? It's It's everything
Well,
about it.
it was harder on my wife when she came over. She came over about 4 or 5 months after I got there, so we weren't apart that much. That was before we had children. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, culturally, um, I had growing up in the South. As a kid, I didn't recognize the prejudice, the racial prejudice that was out there. Um, in hindsight, I remember things
yeah,
that I realized as an adult, like, wow, that was just horrible, horribly racist. Um, it's much better now. It's still not gone, but it's a lot better. But
yeah.
in Saudi Arabia, people would ask me, what's it like, and I said, well, for the first time in my life, I got a feeling, just a feeling of what it's like to uh, uh, be
Prejudiced
prejudiced
against.
against, to be
Sure.
because of my race, my country,
Yeah,
my religion,
yeah.
um, and so it was the first time I felt like a second class citizen,
So that's
and that was
that's
just
interesting,
a
isn't it?
that was just a nothing like what the blacks in the South grew up with, and some still face, but in certain areas. Um, but to come back, it was quite a relief. But
Yeah,
we got to travel quite a bit when we were over there. We got a lot of vacation time. It was a great opportunity, financially as well as culturally, and just being exposed to the world.
yeah.
Uh, and that, fast forward to coming back to the states, I ended up flaying around a little bit, and then finally decided to go back in my late 30s to college and get an accounting degree. And
Okay, right.
I spent the rest of my um, working life, professional life in accounting. Um, Unfortunately, I got my degree when I was 40, and in the states, people can't legally discriminate against you after once you're 40, age wise,
Age. Yeah, right.
and they did. Nobody wanted a 40-year-old junior accountant. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to get the first job. But I lucked
No.
up. I got a contract job that for 3 months turned into 6 months, and that turned into I moved to Wisconsin. I took with a sister company where I was working. I became the controller of a new startup company that their parent company out of Japan was starting, and that was an exciting 7 years. Then I came back to North Carolina. My mother was not doing well. Left, went to so I came
Yeah.
back to help with that. And then I stayed in accounting. I worked actually as an accountant and the office manager for a general contractor. A friend of mine was a general contractor. He wanted me to come back. That was an opportunity to come back to hometown. And then the recession hit. Um,
2008,
well, the
early on.
recession, they technically they'll say it started then, but in September of 2006, I told my buddy, I said, to paraphrase Betty Grable, hang on to your hat. It's going to be a bumpy ride. He said, what do you
Mm.
mean? I said, there's contractors at the beach making $1 million spec homes, and now they can't sell them and they're losing them. And I stayed with him until early 2009, was unemployed for 3 years. My,
Wow.
the same day I became unemployed, my wife became unemployed. She worked for a big
Huh.
law firm and was a secretary to one of the two top lawyers, the people that own the business. Um, she was unemployed almost as long. She re-educated as a pharmacy tech, and I got a job at Lowe's.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Selling clothes.
so I started
Accounting
out.
or?
No. I still on the floor, retail lumber. Started out in lumber,
Wow.
ended up being a lumber manager. I worked in nearly every department. I'm the kind of guy I would tell the manager, she would say, you know, we have a need over in this department. Would you consider going? I said, you send me wherever you need me that you think I can do something for you. Yeah,
Good.
make good use of me. So I was a manager of plumbing. Then they did away with all the department managers. I was there about 5 years, 5 or 6 years. That was my last job, the Swan Song, because uh, and I took that job. I had friends saying, "You're an accountant. What are you doing?" I said, "If you know an accounting firm in town that'll hire me," but nobody
Yeah.
wanted to hire me. I was
No.
too old. They
Yeah.
wanted younger people, and I
Yeah.
understood that. I understood that.
Oh, you got to like. I'm at that point now where I'm 63, and to try and get a job somewhere, like I could probably do traffic control because I've only got 4 years left of work before retirement comes in.
Yeah,
The government pension's available, and no one's going
yeah,
to employ you. Some people will because they want the value of the experience,
yeah,
But you,
yeah.
same as you work doing all the lumber stuff, you just say, put me where you want me to go, and you'll do it. And that's a rare thing today, I think, for a lot of managers. I don't hear that with a lot of people.
Well, one of the things I had on my side was I had working in the past in retail, and it's all about customer service. And
Yeah,
when I started Lowe's, I mean, people I knew that friends that would say, "You're going to work there? That's a horrible place to work. They're so unfriendly. They won't help you." I'm going, "We're going to change that." And the new manager, when I started, she wanted to change that attitude, and we as a store did. There's still people that they hire. They're young. They really don't want to work, or they're just there for the shift. They're not. They don't go out of their way to help people. Um, but that's I grew up at a time when I was taught to, and you were probably too. Our generation was you get a job, you get paid to do something, you do the absolute best, go beyond what they expect,
yeah,
and
yeah.
and
Like you borrow your mate's lawnmower and you give it back to him clean and with a full tank.
and a change of
Isn't that
oil.
what you do?
You
Isn't
change
that
the
just what you
oil.
do? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because
yeah.
if you borrow somebody's lawnmower, yeah,
You don't give it back to them dirty with an empty tank. That's just
yeah,
horrible. So yeah,
yeah,
that's that generational thing. Steve, have you heard that saying, or you probably would not have it over there? It is what it is. Have you heard that?
yes,
I think that's
yeah.
to me that's the way that the world is at the moment, and the young and old, it's sort of a bit irrelevant, but it is what it is to me is such a negative thing. It
Well,
is what it is.
I
It
like
is
to
what
turn
it
that
is.
I like to turn that around and say it is what you make it.
That's exactly what I say. I give you a high five. It's like I say to people, it is life is what you make of it. It isn't what it is. It is what it is means you've given up. You don't want to do anything anymore. And and I don't know if that's a generational thing, though. I don't know if that's because we did. I was saying to my wife the other day, it's when we were growing up, if it rained, we played inside. We grabbed things, we'd make stuff, and we'd do things, and we'd entertain ourselves. Our brains were active. We were doing all this sort of stuff. And since the technological boom, where people just don't do that, older people don't do it anymore. They get stuck into their phones or their technology, and they just don't go out and do stuff anymore. So I think
I've
it's a
told
combination.
I've told my wife the worst thing I ever did was buy her a tablet
Yeah, goes
because
everywhere.
well, she's gotten very um, she sits too much. Well, we go a lot, but every time I turn around, she's on that tablet playing a game, just a
Yeah,
stupid game, and I'm going, what are you looking up how to do? When I get on my phone or I'm on the computer, I'm hitting DIY. I'm
yeah.
on
How
YouTube,
to?
DIY. I got some
Yeah,
project I got in mind. How do I've
yeah,
never done it. Let me go
yeah,
look at a YouTube video. Oh, I look at two or
yeah.
three. There I go. I know how to do it now, and I go do it.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's how I wired this van. Like, how to wire a 12-volt van. Oh, look, YouTube. Thank you. You know,
yeah,
it's
YouTube's great
such
for
a
that.
great resource.
It is. It is, and it's not just YouTube. There's a lot of things out there. My father, with four sons, you know, eh, he didn't make a lot of money in the military. He had a lot of good benefits, but he didn't make a lot of money. So
Yeah,
my dad was the kind. I won't say he was an expert at anything other than his chosen field, but he would there was always something needed doing, something needed
Yeah.
building, fixing, repairing, and and the most valuable thing I probably one of the most valuable that I learned from him was, you know, you try, you might surprise yourself. And I would say probably 80% of the time when he took on something that he didn't know the first thing about before YouTube and anything like that, uh,
Yeah.
it was he would succeed and he would fail about 20, maybe 25% of the time. And
Yeah.
you learn from, I grew up having to hold the flashlight shining on whatever I'm supposed to shine it on while he's working on the car or doing something.
Mm.
And I came away from that just, I absorbed a lot. But the biggest thing was the attitude is, because I do a lot of things around the house. Uh, I've repaired dryers, washers.
Yep.
Um, just I took one of these LCD TVs apart one time because one of the light strips burned out and it wouldn't show anything. I went, oh, YouTube, and I decided it'd be cheaper. I hate throwaway. I like
Yeah.
recycling things.
Yeah.
I still have it because I'm gonna scavenge parts out of it to do something else with
Yeah. Yeah.
with parts. But I've
Yeah.
always been a tinkerer, um, and because of the upbringing I had, um,
I think it's
and
all about learning, though, isn't it? Don't we do that? We don't stop. And I don't know if that's a necessarily a masculine trait. I don't. I think my wife on the same thing. She won't research YouTube for information how to do something. So even a simple thing as a computer thing, like how do you do this on a website? And I go, God, I don't know. Go to Google. And she goes, oh, I never thought of that. It's like, okay, well, why not? Like you're in front of the computer, just go to Google, and bust the Google, and it'll give you whatever answer you want, and it'll find and solve the problem to a degree. It's
yeah,
um, it's just a great tool. And maybe because like my wife's similar to yours, she'll pick up her tablet, if I'm doing something and she's waiting for me in to go into the lounge to watch our TV show the night to wind down, she'll pick it up and play the card game on her tablet. Okay, well, surely she can learn something in that time. It's like I don't know. It's just not. That's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing, isn't it? It's not. It's not
yeah.
good or bad.
Well, usually if it's something like that, she gives it to me to do. So
To find out the answer. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I,
It's the same. It's like, oh, yeah,
hey,
no
how
worries.
about fixing that? I mean, some things now my wife, when she was young, before we got married, she took a powder puff mechanic course, what we call powder puff mechanics. It was for
Oh
women,
wow.
how to change the oil in the car, how to put
Yep.
spark plugs in, do it. So she was an emergency medical technician. She worked in a doctor's
Wow.
house office early in her career. She would learn and do. And then, like I say, when we were unemployed, she went back to the community college. Kudos to the community college, and and took courses to become a pharmacy technician.
Pharmacy tech. Yeah.
And that's what she did until she retired. I
Wow.
kept telling her, you need to retire. Go ahead and retire. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, uh, even now, even before I retired, we would go to a yard sale, and there was a lady across the street about 10, 12 years ago. She was having a yard sale, and I went, oh, I want to buy those. And there were three sailboat kits, wooden, where you build it. I mean, all the parts are there, but it's not plastic, and you have to lay the keel and all of that.
What
And
full size
no, no, this is
models?
models. I
Oh,
mean,
okay, right.
the models are anywhere from 2 to 2.5 feet long.
Wow.
Very detailed. She said, "Why are you getting that?" I said, "Because I've always wanted to do that, and those things are $150 a piece if you buy them new, and that's what I'm going to do in some of my retirement when I retire. I'll have
Yeah.
time." Well, so
Yeah.
far I haven't had time.
Yeah.
Well, one day, probably when I can't physically go as much, I'll be
Yeah.
sitting down doing that. They're there
Oh,
waiting
you
for
guess.
me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. All right, so hang on. You've got from your childhood, you've got your
Yeah.
resilience and your ability to adapt and adjust yourself um, from being an introvert to being extroverted when you need to. Recent past, you've just retired and you go now. I've got time, I can do whatever I want. I allow people to come through, which is two really cool values to hold to. So let's just move on a little bit, if you don't mind. I want you to tell me what about the world today really, really annoys you. Like, just look at it every time, you just want to smack the top of your head and what do you say? Knock the back. What do you call that? Not your head, not your
Snap, snatch a knot in your head.
yeah,
Snatch.
something that you snatch a knot in the back of your own head. Like, God damn it, what is it? What's something that there's got to you got to have one thing. Yet you might have a
Well,
hundred. One.
um, I'm gonna take my earphones off a second. So I can't hear you, but this is what I normally look like without the
Yeah,
mustache.
yeah,
When when COVID hit here in the states, um, we saw our freedoms just being eroded,
yeah.
and everywhere was like that, I think. Um, but I'm I'm on my cord again. Hang on. Ah, keep rolling on my cord, and it catches me short.
That sounds like
Um,
a personal problem, Steve, mate. I
uh,
don't try to
I
keep that to
wish.
yourself.
I wish. um, I told my wife early on. I saw what was happening, and I said, "I'm. This is like early 2020 when this was going down." I said,
Yeah,
"I've decided I'm not going to cut my hair." When they were starting to put mandates in place and talking about it, I said,
yeah,
"I'm not going to cut my hair until this craziness is over." And
yeah,
she prophetically said, "You do realize it might be a while, sometime." And I went, "I don't care." So I've gone back to my college days. I had long hair in college
yeah,
and couldn't grow a beard or a mustache then. Um, peach fuzz was about it for me in those days.
yeah. Me
But
too.
um,
Yeah,
uh, I've this is my silent protest. And people that know me, neighbors, when I'm out walking the dog, interacting, early on they were going, "Have you gotten vaccinated?" And I was kind of offended because how many times in your life before this have you ever walked up to somebody and said, have you had your measles and mumps vaccination?
yeah,
Did you get those as
yeah,
a child? Did you get your
yeah,
pneumonia shots? Did you get?" And
yeah.
I understand they were concerned, but the one and only person that wasn't family that I actually answered, I said no, and I've decided I'm not going to. Now this was a neighbor who had known me for years and years, and
Yep.
she actually said, "You are crazy." I said, "Well, I talked it over with my doctor, and I was surprised the doctor agreed with me. You're fit, you're healthy. I
Yep.
wouldn't get it either."
That's
And which
exactly what my doctor
surprised,
said.
and because I thought I'd get some pushback, and I said that to her, and she said, "Who's your doctor?"
Yeah. I'm not
He
going to tell
shouldn't
you.
be practicing. I'm going. Look, you think like you want to think, but why are you thinking badly of me and my doctor just because we made a different decision? Well,
Yeah.
she was one of these that just went off. I was endangering everybody. She started
Yeah.
backing
Yeah.
up away from me, and I determined then no more
So,
discussions like that.
so, Steve, you said earlier about when you left home and you went over to Saudi Arabia, and in hindsight, you realise the prejudices and the racism that was
Yeah.
in the southern parts of America, because you were faced almost having the same experience from the other side, from another country. Do you just not think it's human nature um, to be like some ism, some racism, some prejudice against someone who doesn't conform with your beliefs? Like this lady, that's just really bad that she has any right or believes she has a right to say that, because you chose to do what you did, and that's absolutely fine. She chose to do what she did, which is absolutely fine. But do you think it's just not human nature for these people to go, man, you should have done that because you're putting everyone at risk? Is no different to saying to the person of whatever race, if you live in Saudi Arabia, they say you can't do that because you're putting everyone at risk by not being a Muslim. It's like, isn't it the same thing? Like, this is stupid.
Well, I agree, and the human nature part is it goes back to tribalism. And what happened with her very clearly is we had been in the same tribe, neighborhood, neighbors,
Yeah.
friends. We'd been in the same tribe, and suddenly, to her, I was in a different tribe, and that tribe was dangerous. And that goes way back in the development of human beings. It's, that tribalism is what probably saved a lot of people, you
Oh,
know,
for sure. Yeah,
and
yeah, I
in
agree.
those hard times, and you had to gather as a group because you may not make it as an individual or just a family. And so the whole idea of that, and the I think that's what happens in the modern world is, and you see it in politics. We have two basic. Well, we actually have, I think, three because uh, the independents. Uh, I was a registered Republican all my adult life. My wife was a registered Democrat all her adult life. Um, I've always I've always voted, as has she, with the attitude I'm voting for the least of two evils.
Yeah,
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 the lesser of two evils, and
yeah,
never really thought we had, maybe except for Reagan and Trump. Uh,
yeah.
Trump's the only president I ever had in my life that actually followed through and did the things he said he was going to do. He promised
I
to
got to
do.
say, from an Australian point of view, Steve, I have to agree. Um, I don't follow politics a lot. My dad was a journalist in the army, and he went into, he retired from in the army, so he was a journalist all the time, and he told me lots of things about politics, and it sort of always was always that lesser of two evils, and one party gets in and they blame the other. But we've only got two real parties over here, even though we've
Yeah,
got the Greens and the Independents and the Marijuana Party and the United Australia Party, all these different parties. But I don't know what it's like in America, but we've got preferential voting rules. So let's say I'm an
yeah,
independent, I want to vote for the independent member, and the independent member doesn't get enough votes to go in, so his votes go to his preference party, Liberal or Labor, which is like Democrats and Republicans. So do you have the same thing over there? Like if
we
you're
have we
can you
have
please explain to me what it means to be a registered Democrat and a registered Republican? So,
well, currently
what is,
neither of us are registered with either of those parties. Barack Obama, in his second election, I, I didn't like his politics. Don't know him as an individual, personally, but didn't like his politics. And but the Republican Party wasn't doing it for me either. And I turned to my wife one day, and I said, before an election, I said, I, I'm sitting here thinking about going downtown and registering as an in North Carolina. It's not an independent; it's unaffiliated.
oh yeah,
So uh, there's the so we and she said I was sitting here thinking the same thing, and we got up at that moment and went and changed to unaffiliated, which only
so
means
what does that mean though? So
well,
sorry, what does it mean?
In North Carolina, the parties, some states, if you're a registered Democrat or if you're not affiliated or not registered with a particular party, you can't vote. You can't vote for their ticket at any time. In North Carolina, the parties are so intent on getting any votes they can get, and other states like this too, that I can I can vote either ticket in the first round, and then when it comes to the actual election, the primary, I I have to vote that ticket
Sorry,
because
sorry.
I've chosen that ticket to vote on.
So
So
so excuse my ignorance, but when you say ticket, we've got a House of Representatives and a Senate. So when we go to an election, we vote, say a preferential vote, and I'm not. We don't register. I don't believe we register in any party. I just go to the voting booth. I get a big sheet, and I go, I'll vote A, two, three, four, tick box this box, and then it goes and gets counted. When you say you vote for a ticket and you've got to do two as a registered Republican, or in this case a registered unaffiliated, do you do they give you a sheet and you've got to vote on that sheet, only that
yeah,
sheet for your preference person, or
yes. Now
what?
I'm trying to remember what they call it the first go around when you're picking um, when the candidates for a party aren't known. There's and I say ticket, it's a ballot. It's a ballot.
Okay,
A ticket's an old, maybe an old Southern term, but it actually used to look like a kind of a ticket, like you get if you got a speeding ticket, in the old days.
Yeah, yeah, yep,
But it would have the candidates listed for each of the offices that
yep.
are up.
Same thing.
And
Yeah, we
so,
got the same
but
process.
so the early in the year, in an election year, we like in the spring, you vote, you go down and vote, and whichever party that you choose to vote for, you make a choice at that point when you're unaffiliated. And the parties, the both, they allow that again because they want to get as many. You're unaffiliated, which means they might be able to sway you one way or the other to vote for them. And I generally vote conservative for the Republican candidates.
Yep, yep.
Um, and the only exception in my life was presidency. I voted for Jimmy Carter.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. But
people,
you
I tell
regret that?
people that, huh?
Do you regret that?
Um, Only in the sense, well, I'll tell you why I voted for him. He was the first candidate that I was in college. He was the first candidate I'd ever heard of that actually gave an interview to Playboy magazine. And
Oh, good on him.
in those
Yeah.
days, Playboy, I don't know how it is now because I don't get Playboy magazine, but in those days, the after you looked at the centerfold, if you were interested in politics or what was going on in the world, you read the interview. And
Yeah.
he, the thing that got me was he's a very religious man. He's a good guy. He really is.
Yeah.
But he said, I voted for him because I said, there's an honest man. The interviewer said, well, have you ever committed adultery? And he said, in my mind. And
Huh, wow.
that's the same. To him,
Yep.
it was the same. He
Yep.
said, I have lusted after other women in my mind. And he said,
Wow.
that was against his upbringing, his Christian beliefs.
Yep.
And he
That's a pretty
admitted.
big thing to say, hey?
Now, it could have been a politician trying to impress somebody, but I said it took, because it could have backfired on him.
Sure.
And I said, that to me is an honest man. And that's the first honest man I think I've ever voted for because I was in college. I hadn't voted that many times. And then, like I say, Ronald Reagan turned out to be a good one. Jimmy Carter, I think, was the wrong president for the times.
Yeah.
I
He was
think
he's definitely
that
a
was the
victim of his
biggest.
time, wasn't he?
If we hadn't had the Iran hostage situation and how all that went badly when we tried to rescue him under his terms, uh, and it wasn't his fault. It was the military leaders. Snow, told him, yeah, we can do this when they had
Yeah.
no idea what they were up against in just
No. No.
the desert conditions.
Yeah.
I
That was a
experienced
shocking
that
time.
later. I recently told somebody was saying, well, there's a big dust storm somewhere. I said, yeah. I said, you remember the movie, the late, more modern movie, The Mummy, where the big
Mm.
cloud of dust is rolling towards they're trying to
Yep.
escape. I said, I've
Yep.
been in one of those. That's called a shamal. And when it comes, I was in a car. I just had to stop about an hour. You couldn't see
Wow.
beyond the windshield.
Wow.
It rains right before the dust storm gets there, weirdly enough. And then so all the dust sticks and, like mud. But you couldn't see beyond the windshield and just hope no other idiot was driving through it, trying to
Yeah.
drive through it, because we were out in the desert. But it, that hit that rescue team and took the helicopters down. And so it wasn't Carter's fault, but he got blamed for it. He didn't
Of
really.
course, he has to follow the sword as the commander in
Yeah,
chief, isn't he?
yeah.
Yeah.
Buck
Can't
stops
be
there.
blaming people for. He actually made the decision, even though he was given shocking advice. And that'll come out if it hasn't already. What seems to it already has.
Well, it's like Trump being given all this advice he was given by Fauci and others, and they were blowing smoke.
Yeah.
We're learning now that no, this is crazy. The latest thing
Yeah.
is the Republicans accusing the secretary over the Fauci's old organization, the NIH, NIS, NIH, whatever, uh, of that Fauci and all the other top people, they have to be um, recertified every so often for their position, and that didn't
Yep.
get done under the current administration, and so they were actually they're claiming they were illegally holding those posts, and so they anticipate there may be public lawsuits about things that spring out of that because we're a lawsuit happy country.
Yeah, we're following that trend as well now. I think I don't see the point. It's it's a little bit like you've raised children and now you're looking at grandkids and you go, okay, so a year later, like my daughter did something when she was 8, and it really hurt my feelings, but I got over it. But now it doesn't. Now I'm not over it. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to slap her upside the head because she did something when
Snatch
she
a
was
knot
8.
in their head.
It's not snatch a knot. I've got to get that. I can't do that. I can't do that in retrospect. It's like it's got to be done there and then, or it's irrelevant. So
Yes. Yeah.
my daughter now, I can say to her after I snatched that knot in the back of her head, I feel better. She's now suffering, and what's the point? What's the point in doing that? Fauci's an idiot. He needs to be sacked. My opinion. Sorry, world.
Well,
YouTube can be crap. You know,
it,
we
it,
know that. We've seen it. The evidence is clear as crystal water. Is manipulated and lied to the system, and now we're going to do something about it. It's like, come on, we've known it for years. Sort of like,
now he's retired. Now he's at Yale or Princeton or Harvard somewhere as a professorship.
so he
But
shouldn't be doing that either.
no,
That he needs to go. Look, you've completely screwed the system. Your consequence is you don't work anymore. You've got more than enough money. Don't don't put your bloody rhetoric out there and convince other people to be an ass like you were. Just no, you're gone. You're out of here. No work, unemployed. Go live in the Hamptons and make your fortunes doing something else. But
well, I think people get into politics and people get into medicine. I had a friend that became a doctor, uh, almost got in politics till I convinced him bad idea. I think they get in with the best of intentions. I don't know that there's a lot of people that have bad ulterior motives going in, but in the case of Fauci and folks like him at high levels, um, the WHO, the World Health Organization, same
yeah,
way.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and they're not alone in this. Big pharma, it's big money. And the money people are really twisting our world in a knot and to get what they want the way they
Yeah,
want it. And
yeah.
it makes you feel inadequate if you just have a sense of giving up. Um, the
So,
Fauci's in the world, I think, got corrupted by the money. And
so Steve, you're a religious person,
yes,
um, uh, as in you're practicing.
well, I'll give you a little bit of background there. I grew up in a religious family. My
Yep,
father did not attend church.
yep,
Um, but my grandfather, I used to love to go to church when I was little with my grandfather. My mother was a churchgoer. I didn't know my grandmother on my mother's side. She died before I was born. Um, and so I grew up going to church. And my mother, my older brother and I, my mother, when we were teenagers, young teens, we were hard to get up on Sundays sometimes, and we didn't want to go. My grandfather passed away, and we just didn't want to go, neither one of us.
yeah, yeah.
And she said, "Well, I'm going to leave it to you," thinking she was going to shame us into it. Well,
Yeah.
uh,
Teenagers.
it
Good
wasn't
luck.
until late in my married life that I started attending a church again, and I don't go
Yeah,
now. Um, and it's not so much. I developed my thinking when I was a young adult and even a teenager. Started then that I have a I think that I have a very close personal relationship with my God,
yeah,
and I talk to my Lord nearly every day,
yeah,
primarily because I do some kind of sin every day, and people say little sins, big sins. To my God doesn't distinguish them. So every day I'm asking forgiveness at least once a day. I'll swear. I do. And I'm quick to recognize that.
yeah,
I do it, but I'm quick
yeah,
to recognize I shouldn't. And I've tried
yeah,
to instill that in my kids and my grandkids.
yeah.
But
I think that
I,
taking responsibility is part of that, though, isn't it? Hey,
well,
that's the
it's, when I was young, you got the responsibility real quick. when you did something wrong. There was no beating around
Yeah.
the bush.
Yeah.
But I I looked at organized religion, and I realized I don't, like the Catholic faith, that they, in my day, they preached that you needed to go confess to a priest to get your confession heard by God.
Yeah.
And I always thought, well, that's nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you need another human being who's
Yeah.
flawed in
Yeah.
order to speak directly to your Lord?
Yeah,
And
so I read between the lines of the Bible reading because I had a similar upbringing with Sunday school and churches, and Sundays we didn't get up and Mum used to read us Bible stories. So like I know all of the stories behind it all, but the one thing that I sort of read between the lines in the Bible, because I don't think it actually says this, but Jesus Christ said, um, "You are the Lord is you. It's in you. You are part of Him. He is part of you. You don't need to worship in a temple to be God. Wherever you are, God is. So therefore you can talk to God wherever you are. So God is in the bush. God is in the trees. God is in the caravan. God is in you. So you can talk to Him wherever you like. And I think for just to zip my opinion into this, because my opinion means absolutely nothing except to me. I agree with what you're saying about that. The fact that you talk to your God and your God is whatever you want it to be. Like some people call it God, some people call it universe, some people call it spirit or the source or whatever they call it, sort of irrelevant. But you talk to it because it gives you the answer. And I think we've lost a lot of those values in today's world. I think when you had a person to go to, or even if it was an icon of a church or the symbology of a church, it gave you a source to go to feel relieved. There are people of like mind with you. Hear a lot in the recent past about people. Nietzsche, I think it was, who a long time ago said that we've killed God, and God is dead, and we killed him. It's our fault, and we've lost that area to go back to be accountable for ourselves. That's why that at the bottom of my page, down the bottom there underneath you, says hashtag Treos, which is like take responsibility and own your shit. But um, if we do that, then we are being honourable to ourselves, and we do everything we can possibly in a godlike way, not godlike, but in a religious type philosophy that I'm taking responsibility where I can. Well, I guess where I'm leading with this is the evil of money that you mentioned earlier. Um, in the past, and the readings and the even though it's a little bit of poetic license in their TV shows of trying to be as real as they can be, where they talk about the corruption in the church and the money, the you had to pay taxes to the church and also to the government, and it was all this money, and all the church people had so much affluence and wealth and had so much influence over everybody. I can understand why we killed God, because if you're working your butt off in the coal mines for 10 hours a day, and you come home and the church representative comes around and says, I want three-quarters of your pay because we've got to feed the church people and build a big cathedral, you start to get a little resentful and bitter about it. Um, can you see a sort of resemblance to that, to the way the world is now, but without the church being the influence? Do you think that do you think money is the new God? To put it as bluntly as I can possibly put it, do we now worship money more than we should be worshiping something like a God?
um, I think God's still relevant in the world,
Oh, I agree.
and I think that there are a lot of people. It's kind of like, I hate to go to politics, but it's kind of like conservatives for a long time didn't blow their own horn. They do much more nowadays because they're getting defeated too many times by the liberals, and they've
Yeah,
learned they've got to stand up and speak out. But um, most most church, most Christians I know, and most the few Muslims I know, and other Jewish that I know, we don't have a lot of those where I live, but there are a few. Um,
mm,
most most of those are God fearing. I mean, they it's a little different religion, but the basics are there. And
yeah,
when you look at Christianity and think about the Ten Commandments, they're all good ideas to live by.
fantastic. Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with any of that. Those are, if you didn't attribute those to a God, uh, you, it's good for society. just as a way for people to live their lives and get along with one another. The money,
I guess. Sorry, go
money
on.
has always been um, something that some people, and I want to say, and maybe it, modern technology and the instant transmittal of information around the world uh, has made it seem like everything's going downhill and everything is bad and everybody's
Sure.
just money grubbing and out for power and whatever they can
Yeah.
get. And
Yeah.
I, I watch my wife and I will watch the news and we look at each other and go, that's not my world. That's
No.
not that's not how the people I know live.
Yeah.
Now, money's important in order to provide for your family and uh, depending on what level of that you need to provide. But
Yeah.
once you get past the basics, I think the hardest thing that I see going today is people struggle to figure out how to be happy, and I've tried to instill in my daughters, and I've been trying to instill in my granddaughters the basic idea. You've got a choice in life. You can choose to be pessimistic. The glass is half empty all the time. It's never
Yeah.
full. It's not half full, it's half empty kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting enough, I heard a thing about that. Pessimist half empty, optimist the glass half full, and the engineer says you got the wrong glass. I can't remember where I heard
That's
that.
right. Yeah, that's cool.
But
Yeah.
so
I think
trying
what
to
I've done.
raise these girls to think positively about themselves and positively about everything in their life. My daughters, I mean, we would have a car wreck. We had a car wreck. We had a custom van. We were coming back from Wisconsin to vacation in North Carolina. We got in a car wreck,
Mm,
and it wasn't bad, but there were minor injuries.
yeah.
And as soon as I realized everybody, basically is okay, and this is how I just look at life. I said, we're real lucky.
Yes, all
And they
right.
go, well, lucky. We just had a car wreck. I said, no, could have been a lot worse.
Absolutely.
We we
Yeah, absolutely.
we are very lucky because
And
every
that's
time
part of your
something
faith,
bad
though, Steve.
happens,
Yeah, that's part of your faith that has that trust and belief that that's fine. It's like we're either being looked after or the dynamic is good, and it could be anything. And you can take it where you want to take it. It's like you said earlier, and it's part of the thing I say too. Life is exactly what we make of it. And you could have gone, oh my God, we're dead. The car's stuff. We'll never have a holiday. What's going to be like? And all of those things could take you down a negative spiral of despair. And you don't do that. You take that. Oh well, at least we're safe and we're fine. We'll get another car. And that's that positive the
yeah,
positiveness
well,
about that. But I never taught my daughter to be happy. I said to her, it's like your goal is to be content in wherever you are, and you'll find yourself that if you're content in misery, like you've just had a car accident and the car's written off, your custom van you spent 2 years building is now a wreck, and you go, we're safe. So you're content. And in that contentment, you have a smile on your face. And that, for me, as I was saying to her, was that gives you that you're content in all of the drama, you're content in all the joy and all the happiness. And you'll find that when you are content, you just naturally feel relaxed and you naturally become the byproduct of contentment generally is a smile on your face and relaxed. And people like to call that happy, but I don't, I guess it's like when my father died recently, well, not recently, not 12 years ago now or something. Um, it was, I wasn't happy he was dead, so I don't want to be happy when he died because that wouldn't be right.
yeah,
Um, but I was content. I was content with the fact that he lived a really good life. He was no longer suffering, and that contentment just allowed me to go, he's moved on,
yeah,
and he's that, he's moved on. My contentment put a smile on my face, and people think, "Are you happy that your father's dead?" And I go, "Absolutely not." It's like it's just a I guess it's a feeling of where we're at, but just to backtrack a fraction on that money thing, um,
yeah,
and the recent couple of years with the religious side of money. And I don't mean to, please, I'm not taking away from a belief
Sure.
in God, because I believe too. It's just a if in the past when you had no money, the only way the church could get you to do something was, if you don't do this, you'll be excommunicated. And they got people to do things that are absolutely atrocious and absolutely horrible and disgusting, with the fear of being excommunicated from their God. This is why I relate the money to the God thing, and I don't mean it to be the spiritual aspect, but the dogma of it. The last 3 or 4 years brought out to me that what the people can do to get people to do things they would not normally do is by saying, if you don't do this, you'll lose your job, you'll lose your income, you'll lose your money. And and people did things that I believe now in hindsight they regret absolutely so much. They did it, and they did it for the money. And that's where I draw the parallel comparison from the Middle Ages or the Inquisition times
Yeah.
to the last 4 or 5 years. That the way to get people to do something is to say, if you don't do it, you lose your job. If you don't do it,
Well,
you'll be excommunicated.
I've I've had jobs that several times when it wasn't expressly put that way, but there were requirements and demands placed upon me that went against my personal morals and ethics and my
Yeah,
professional morals and ethics.
yeah,
And I said that.
yep.
And they said, well, you know, this is your job. And I went, no, it's not, not anymore.
No,
And
that's
I've
right.
walked away
Yeah, good for you,
because,
man. That's
well, it has a downside, but the
yeah,
downside
but
is
that's right.
usually transitory. It's not long
Absolutely.
lasting. You know, that's
Yeah,
the thing. When I went back to college, we were sitting in ethics class, and they presented these kind of dilemmas all the time in ethics class, uh, in accounting based type ethics. And
yeah,
the smartest, the smartest people in the class, the young people, the smartest couple of people would go,
yeah,
of course I would do what the client wants. Of course I would
yeah,
alter that. Of course I would
yeah,
do it because, and
yeah,
I'm shaking my head. All the older people sitting up front are shaking our head. And the professor goes, yeah, okay, Steve, yeah, what do you think? I'm going, you can't go through life doing that.
no,
You you'll you'll be looking over your shoulder all your life. You'll
yeah,
fi- if you ever can go to sleep with an eased mind, then you've become corrupted. You've become
yeah.
somebody
Look,
you're not.
I actually believe, um, and whether it's right or wrong, and I've same sort of similar upbringing with you, with the church in the beginning, and Sunday school and Bible stories. And I went into martial arts, and then I went into the spiritual side of it with meditation. But it's all about that mindset, and the morals that you have make you the person that you are. And I think what you sound to me in the conversation we've had is you've got some really, really cool morals in there, and to stand up and guide that through to your kids and to your grandkids is what, I don't know. Maybe our generation needs to stand up more, Steve, and maybe we need to start bringing stuff back in that is lost. And it may be that, it may be that we both have to set up in our little areas a Sunday get together with people that's not necessarily reading from the Gospels or something, but we need to bring this back in. It's and I'm not advocating one religion over another, because to me it's all part of the same tree. It's like it's a tree of life. It's a tree of experience, and to say that there's a God is to deny there is a God is to deny that life exists. It's like you just can't. And maybe we've got to do something for these young people. And I don't know how to do it. It's like it frustrates me a little bit, but mate, I've
Well,
so enjoyed talking with you. I've got to go and pick up some baby seats at the moment to go and pick up my grandkids, but um, I'd really love to do this again and have a chat with you about other things. And
sure.
um, even I know I'm pushing your introvert state a little bit, but um, I'd like you to do a live with me one day. Um, as I'm working
Sure.
through the lives, and we'll talk about some whatever topics we want to talk about. And maybe this is a good one. What we finished off on, the uh, the religious, the spiritual aspect of life, and the lack of spiritual aspect of life, and what we can do to make that like better for people. It's
Well, I would tell you, if you ever have that, if you have never done it, if you ever have the opportunity to take the time, I was fortunate in college to have philosophy and religion courses, even though I was a marine biologist. They were electives, and I was interested in it. And ancient religions and philosophies, and how religions developed from the beginnings of man and the roots of it. And it's extremely interesting and very you'll it, I learned a lot about
yeah.
the world and about
Well,
religion then. So
I think you've set up a new topic for us for a live. Um, Not this week because I'm doing meditation this week, I think.
sure.
But I actually think that I've got I've got a very childish belief and philosophy on the religion, the origins of religion and politics, and I'd share it with you. You know, when we finish this, I'll quickly share it with you. You can tell me I'm an idiot, or we can have a laugh about it. But I've actually, unfortunately, I've got to go, and I'm really
Sure.
this is I could keep going and going. I've really enjoyed the time with you and speaking with you. But
It's been a
um,
pleasure.
so so my thanks to you, and I'll do this. I'll just sign off from everybody. So those who are watching right now's the time to share this and get the information out there. Like it, you know, don't follow the channel, don't subscribe, you know, don't care. Um, Watch the channel, share it to someone who you think might be interested in this, and I like the story to come out. So I know there's other people out there who are a little bit like Steve. So again, thank you. A little introverted, but man, we've been going for almost an hour and a half, and we could go for another 2 or 3 hours. So you've got stories to tell, and I like the stories to be there. And you will be you know one of the first five, or you are in the fifth one of my groups. So in the first 10 at least. My gratitude to you and my thanks to you. I want everyone to go and understand that this journey we're on is our choosing. We can make it difficult, we can make it easy. But for me, it's take responsibility down there, take responsibility and own your stuff, and go out and enjoy this journey you're on. Steve, thank you so much for being part of this with me today. I need that picture from
Thanks
you
for
so I
having
can
me.
do the beginning, and we'll send it off. So thank you everybody for being part of the show. Thank you, Steve, for being part of here with me, and we'll sign off for now, and I'll look forward to speaking to you in the next chapter. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good
Thanks.
weekend.